In this episode of The Dorks, we sit down with Hamzah Shanbari, the Dork of the Year and recent author of the book Paperless Builders, and talk about his work at Haskell with technology and how contractors should prepare before implementing any tech. It was a wonderful conversation, and Hamzah definitely made clear why he is Dork of the Year.
And we're live. It's episode 84 of the Construction Dorks, and this is a special one. We do this one every year, but the guest always changes because the DOTY always changes. That's right, folks. It's the Dork of the Year Award podcast. And drum roll, please. I should have had Trent doing that before.
Oh, perfect.
Hamzah Shanbari, the DOTY of the Year Award winner. Welcome to the show, my friend. It's good to see you.
Thank you for having me, Jeff and team. It's
great to be here. We're gonna roll around the room, do a little of our usual introductions. It's been a little while, so it's kind of nice. I'm gonna start off myself here with a little Russell's Reserve 10-year-old aged Kentucky straight bourbon. So on a single piece of ice in a coolly monogrammed glass I just got with the S for my last name on it. So psyched about that. Jonathan Marsh, I know you got something good there, buddy.
Oh yeah, man. I'm going with Highland Park 12 Viking. So this is possibly the smokiest scotch that I have at any given point. And I got the MEP Glencairn glass to have it in. It's one of my favorites, man. It's really nice. And my neighbor has been burning in the backyard for like 2 days. So every time I walk outside, it smells like smoke. And I think that that's why I'm drinking it. Like, I think that I finally just surrendered and said, okay, well, I need to smell the smoke and drink the smoke too, man.
Can somebody ISO the clip of John saying my neighbor is burning outside? Somebody please cut that out.
I want it on repeat.
You should put him out.
Somebody put him out. Somebody put him out.
And you, Travis, how about you, man?
Well, I busted out. It's a summer favorite of mine is making a mule, and my mule is in my Yeti mug here. With it's made with a little Kentucky bourbon itself. It's Wild Turkey 101. So. Jeff, but you've brought it up before. It's not a bad bourbon. If you mix a little something, it makes it even better.
That's right.
101's like so underrated, man. I decant that and give it to people, and they always pick it. Like if you give them 3 whiskeys and that's one of them, they're likely to pick it if they don't know what it is.
What you got over there, Trent?
Well, I'm on a dry period, so I just have my Coke Zero. But I gotta tell you, Jeff and Travis had good selections. I don't know about John's. I don't know about the smoky, peaty, whatever he's got going on there, but
it's almost as bad as an IPA.
You gotta love it.
Yeah, the Russell's is pretty solid. There's not a bad Russell's that I've had. And then, yeah, Wild Turkey is kind of like a Buffalo Trace. Like it's, I feel like you can't really go wrong. But
right.
Yeah, I don't. And other than that, is it? I know you said the DOTY. Is it the DOTY or the DOTY? I think we've got to come to a conclusion on this. But in either way, speaking of which, I'm going to say DOTY. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer it over to our DOTY, Hamzah. And it didn't look like you had anything too fancy that you were drinking over there either.
No, not at all. Just the water. One, I did not get the memo. I know, Jonathan, you sent me something that says something about a drink.
But our communication
is to be solid. Just, that's just something we're going to talk about.
Comms director's fired.
Because Devin did that in the art of construction, right? It's like, what's your favorite drink? That's how you start. So I didn't expect that I needed to bring a drink. But yeah, well, the issue is, it's not an issue, but I'm in America right now, the land of the free and the home of the brave. But where I come from, Saudi Arabia, it's a very dry country overall, and it's like a frowned upon thing to actually advertise as you're drinking. So I'm gonna keep it kosher.
Hey, we should have given you that. We've got to edit that, Jonathan, because actually some of the coolest things we've had. No, some of the coolest things we had is like Tahir Ali brought on kombucha, like own special brew kombucha. Right. That was like, I'm like, we need to open this up and get, because you don't have to advertise that. It can be, What
But it's
crazy?
already too late. I mean, I already said it on Devin's podcast.
Ah,
Because
there you
he
go.
asked me that question. He starts with like, "What's your favorite drink?" And I had a
Uh,
story about, I of course I never drank before I came to the States, so I'm just like trying different things. I have no idea what I'm doing. Going to ABC and just picking random things, putting them with random other things, and nothing really kind of
Oh,
stuck. Right? I don't know what I'm doing. Until one day I went with our CFO. We went to a business trip to Kentucky, to Lexington, and he introduced me
oh, right on.
in a bar. He introduced me to the old fashioned, and I'm like, wow, this is different. I've never had this before. Here's the funny thing: is I come back to Jacksonville. Next day, I go to Chili's with the kids and the wife, and I'm like, I'm gonna order an old fashioned, and I'm like all snobby about it, and it's like, what is this? That's not the same thing. What is this? This isn't an old
so
fashioned.
it gets translated differently
No,
in different spots. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
The
I'm
Chili's
learning, but
old
there's
fashioned
different.
does not stand up, I don't think.
That's
No,
right.
no,
Exactly.
there's levels to the
No.
bourbons that I
For
have
sure.
no idea what I'm doing,
Chili's
but
not
I'm
known
learning.
for their old fashioned.
Uh,
Chili's
I love
not
that
known
story.
for a lot other than quick, fast, and cheap.
Baby back
Yeah,
ribs.
baby
Ah,
back ribs.
barbecue sauce.
right
It's
on.
like,
So look, all right, we got to bring this around. We got to get this back together. So for those that don't know you, Hamza, let the folks listening in know a little bit about you, and we can get into why we think you got the DOTY. We're gonna call it. Is it the DOTY? The DOTY. We're gonna
dork
call it the
of,
DOTY.
That's what I'm going
I
with.
think that
All
works.
right, the DOTY it is. Especially, it doesn't sound like some grandma's name. I'm sorry for anybody out there named Dottie that's a grandma, but we'll call it the DOTY. So
Yeah, so Hamzah Shanbari, Director of Innovation at Haskell currently. Background mostly educational. I spent a lot of years in college and completed my PhD in design, construction, and planning from University of Florida. And then I joined Haskell, kind of starting at the VDC realm, looking at BIM and coordination and all that fun stuff. Uh, and you know that work in itself is very. I mean, I'm sure you all know you've been there. Is very
Right?
time consuming and involved. And day after day, I've been staying there beyond 5 p.m. trying to get things done because the job site is pouring concrete at 12. I can't just come back in the morning and try to figure it out. Um, so that's kind of what started me down the route of what other technologies are out there that can help me, be more efficient and finish the work faster so I can get to my family at 5 p.m. And it started with, selfishly, looking at things for myself and then, started sharing some of those tools and software that I've been using with the rest of the team. And before I know it, I'm doing the same thing for the entire company and now, sharing it with peers and across the industry too.
So, were there any software that you found that did get you home by 5 a.m.? Like,
5
like the
a.m.
one chance you got to shout out a software that actually got even just a day, because like there's a lot of us that haven't been home at 5 a.m. for a very long
Yeah.
time. So,
Most people
so
aren't even
any
up
of
by
them that
5
you
a.m.,
really,
John.
yeah.
yeah,
We
yeah,
so a couple of things. One is MWF, metal wall framing, that plugin that allowed me to do so much framing in so little time. Of course, there's a lot of cleanup after that because nothing is fully automated yet, right? But that's one that really helped kind of get me like a very good, huge start, and then I can go in there and tweak things. But then BIM track was something that really helped us with the coordination aspects and reporting and compiling things. And Navisworks reporting sucks.
yes, desperately
Yeah,
sucks.
and
Were you managing coordination at that point?
absolutely, yeah, for several projects.
Yeah. Did that allow? So I didn't do that one, but I did the Revista one, and I went from being able to manage effectively like a handful of people to like I felt like I could manage close to 100 people. It was like so much different when everything's numbered and
Yeah.
out there. How did it feel when you first started to get that working and running and realize, oh, I can do more now? Did you suddenly just decide to do more and never go home?
I did. I suddenly decided, but then again, at the same time, like people start looking around. It's like, hey, what? How are you done so fast? Like, what are you
Right.
using? And of course now, before then, like back then, it's like IT didn't have the big iron hammer on everything. On like, no, you can't install whatever you want. What are you talking
Right.
about? No, we have a questionnaire that you need to fill.
It's
So
If it gets through
yeah.
committee before you can install it.
Oh man, yeah. Now it's so many stage gates, but the Iron Man of IT can tell you all about it.
There's a reason. It's not paranoia if they're actually after you. That's just what I want to say. Uh,
Yes, yes.
uh,
I'm with them.
Everybody's after you.
Believe me, I understand their mission.
Yeah. Yeah. But you
Well,
got
it's funny that you
I
go
it's
ahead,
funny that you
Travis.
highlight the fact that you weren't actually going home early, because I think that's one of the conversations we always have as construction technologists is, well, it's gonna, my foreman's gonna work less hours. Like, no, they're not gonna work less hours. They're just gonna have time to do more value added things.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
Tell me this, if you found too that like you kind of hit flow state a little bit more with some of those tools back then, and you kind of look up and you're like, well, normally I was dreading it and it was like, oh my gosh, it's 6:30, it's 7 o'clock, I need to get home. And now you're like, oh my gosh, it's 6:45 and I'm still sitting here because you're like rolling through things. I remember those automation days.
Oh yeah, man. The report. There was a couple of things also, like not just reporting, but exporting all these Revit files from all these different people into Navisworks. That in itself takes forever. And then we discovered RVT Exporter. I'm like, hell yeah, let me set this baby up, and then I can go home and I get the email notifications like, yep, it's been succeeded. Fantastic. While I'm having dinner with the fam, stuff like that. That's really kind of moves the needle and automating things that are not necessarily for you to sit down and babysit a
Right.
computer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I always thought like the BIM process at times, when you looked at like a GC or CM run coordination process that you had trade contractors in, to me it just always seemed like it was this really misunderstood business entity that was like trying to operate um and I think there was a ton of talent that came in the room. Like a lot of these trade contractors had like really good tradesmen that found their way to the digital world and were kind of like drawing and designing the work of the contractor, and there was a whole bunch of talent and a whole bunch of tech that was coming together, but it just seemed like there was no real structure to how to manage any of it, or like how any of it should even run. And I think that was most of the struggle that I saw, and a lot of it, like people would point around and be like, this trade contractor is holding everybody up, or this guy doesn't know what he's doing, and this isn't. And I think a lot of it was just nobody knew. I don't think anyone really knew how to manage it, how to run it, how to like that. That to me was always um, kind of the elephant in the room. I don't know if you agree with that, Hamza.
I mean, it's still. I mean, I don't think anybody still figured it out completely either.
Yeah, we're waiting for the
There's
software to
still,
figure it out, right?
Right.
yeah, yeah. There's bits and pieces, but at the end of the day, it's like CYA, right? Everybody's just trying to protect themselves and their company, and the process is the process. The technology can be blamed sometimes, but it's really all about how do we get to work together at the end of the day as a team and not as adversaries, right? Now,
It's
hopefully
just
we'll get there one day.
that's still a battle or a struggle, I guess. Battle
Yeah.
may be the wrong word.
Hey, have you guys noticed, and Hamza's particularly you, have you noticed though that the BIM teams kind of realize that they can't get anywhere without collaboration? Like I've noticed you can have people that are bitter enemies on a job site and are actually taking work from one another. We're mechanicals, most of us, and the sheet metal, we could be doing it, but we might not be doing it on this job. And that person is our direct competitor. But when it comes to the BIM departments, I have seen again and again where that doesn't exist in there because we know that we can't move forward without being good friends, and there's some real
Yeah.
value to sort of building love between these teams even if they're competitors. Like, what do you think the relationship part of your job looks like now, compared to when, I mean, let's face it, before you had some of the tools you were talking about, coordination was done on the job site in a trailer, instead of in front of a desk, at home. What do you think of that relationship?
It's definitely getting better with the technology and the openness to share a lot of information back and forth. However, I that's why I mentioned, that comment to Trent, which is like we're still trying to figure it out because there's still that big disconnect between you're talking about the technology people or the BIM groups, VDC, whatever you want to call them, and the actual field people that are installing the work. Because if you look at any collaboration or any coordination that's happening right now, it's usually BIM department talking to another BIM department and then trickling that information down to the actual people that are putting the job in place. And there's big disconnect between these two. We tried to stress in Haskell, like if you as a trade partner say that you use BIM, we need somebody from the field, like a foreman level at least or above, a superintendent, to be on those calls as well, not just your BIM coordination person, so to say.
Yeah.
But that
I mean,
doesn't
that's a pretty
happen all
cool
the time.
ask because I
Yeah,
feel
it's
like
a good
that's
idea.
as a labor manager or somebody who's kind of the fiduciary responsibility to a project like a PM, that's a pretty telling comment, Hamza, when you tell me as like a trade PM that because I'm all about labor and hours, right? So that's if you're telling me, hey, you can put whoever you want in this meeting, but I want you to have a field guy anyways, that's pretty much going to tell me that I'm just going to put the field guy in there and teach him the computer part, right? I mean,
Yeah,
because
that's
now I have to pay two people to sit in the meeting, I mean, so uh,
yeah.
so
I
it seems
learned
like
that
we're kind of
from
talking about
Sal.
who we really want in the room now, right? I mean, let's just get to the point.
Yeah, Sal always preaches is like it's so much easier to get somebody from the field and teach them the computer stuff than take somebody from the computer and try to teach them the field stuff.
Right.
We really haven't argued with him enough about that because I hear the exact opposite a lot of time. Um,
Yeah.
and
There's two
and
schools
and
of thought
I
there.
think I mean it's kind of like I take this back to my experience in IT and when DevOps was created. And Travis, you might remember this. Like when DevOps was originally created, there was people from IT coming and people from software development coming in. And it was like, well, which one's easier to teach? Is it easier to teach an IT person how to get flexible and be agile? Or is it easier to teach a coder, a software developer, the rules of IT and, realms and virtual desktops, etc. And it was like, well, I think it depends, right, on the person.
Yeah, I was gonna say it depends a lot on the person, and in both aspects, you're really kind of looking at from either on what you're teaching, like um, the trade knowledge, like the even if if you're only taking somebody kind of out of the the union hall that's an apprentice, they still have some hands-on knowledge. They've still seen what that physically looks like to build that thing, um, and then you are just showing them what that thing looks like inside of Revit or whatever and how they all connect up. So I would say that, like you said, it really depends on the person because the person makes that connection faster. The right type of person can kind of fill into either role and the tools.
Yeah.
I think there's still, I think BIM departments have a clean gloves mentality too often. I think one of the biggest things that I saw that was helpful is just taking everybody that was doing
Hmm.
drawing out to the BIM department or out of the BIM department into the fab
Yes.
shop and just physically manipulate everything in the fab shop. Like learn how to weld. We had a guy that would help you learn how to weld if you didn't know how to weld. And after you learned how to weld, you stopped putting pipes right up against a wall because you can't get your hand
Right.
in there to get at them. And so I don't know that I would push back on Sal because I think he's right. But I do think that there's a ton of people that are in technology that if they were given a chance to be on a job site for a few months with other people really learning how to install, might have some insight. And, every time we bring somebody in from the field, I learn something. Like in technology, I learn something when the field comes in. I bet you if we pushed the other way, they might learn something from us. Have you guys at Haskell? You have a little more runway. You've had some success. You personally have obviously had a lot of success. Have you? How much time have you spent in the field? How important do you think it is for someone who's in your position and is working with technology to spend the hours out there getting dirty.
I think it's extremely important to be there. I myself spent at least um, 6 to 8 months in different, job sites at different points in time, right? It's important to see how the work is getting done and who runs the communication channels and how does that trickle back um, to the office, right? So it's extremely important, and yeah, I've been disconnected for quite some time now. So like 5 years, we would like visit a job site for like an hour or two just to kind of see what's going on and talk to people. But I do miss those days. I think they were fun, and it's really, you learn a lot from just being on the job site, observing, talking to the people, seeing the struggle hands on. Right? It's not you just heard about somebody struggling with something.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things to learn about a job site or even the process of construction that's not even so much completely related to being a tradesperson, like the things you just mentioned, Hamza. There's a lot of the communication aspect, like just the various phases that you're in. Like what what's the critical path of construction right now? What's the critical path next month? What's the when we communicate, who's the decision maker on this? Who delegates this? I mean, there's like a whole realm of things that you kind of have to understand to be successful, I think,
Absolutely.
in VDC and BIM. That's not just how do these pipes or how does this duct go together. I mean, I think because the virtual build touches all of the same places that the physical build touches, other than physically putting the building together in your office, but the business aspects that you touch are all of them. So I think as someone in BIM, especially as like a BIM manager, I mean, you kind of have to be somewhat of a jack of all trades of the process or of a project. I mean, and John, we've talked about this numerous times, but you're borderline training the new age PM in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and it
There's a lot
relates a
of
lot
overlap.
to the IT world, Jeff. I think you'll agree with me on this, that they're becoming the new business analysts, because the business analysts kind of had to be able to to bridge that gap between they had to be it's the office space thing. Like I take the I take the information from the customer and I give it to the developer because I can speak tech and then I can speak business. Like the BIM person has to be that inside of construction
But you talk directly.
now.
Do you talk directly to the designer?
I'm a people person.
I'm a people person.
All right, maybe we went too dorky there. Oops.
Yeah.
Did we go too deep? No, Travis, I think you're absolutely right. Actually, I think we should call that should we call it like a building analyst? Because like
Yeah.
it's something of that, or like a, I don't know, means and methods analyst or something. Because it is the truth. It's what we preached for the longest time. I think it's actually what construction tech in general could use a lot more of on the construction side, is business analysts that are actually, because I cannot tell you how many slides I've seen recently from general contractors. And Hamza, I would love to see what Haskell's looks like of the app, like all the apps they use. Like I remember
Yeah.
when Autodesk and Procore's app marketplaces made me want to vomit. And then all of a
Yes.
sudden recently I've been seeing construction, like GCs and other construction companies show their footprint. And I'm like,
Mhm.
how do you even keep track of it? So I'm kind of interested right now. Like, how do you guys manage that? I mean, it's a big stack that you guys have, I'm sure, and you're watching a lot of others that are everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a huge stack, and it's only increasing from here on, right? As I said, we have a robust IT team that's literally dropping the hammer as we speak right now in terms of like, no, there's new software, there's a process to look at new software, and then of course they route it to us as DisruptTech to pilot the new software before we can even talk about, wait a minute, you want to use it on a project? No, there is a route for that. And they blocked everything, literally, like anything that is not approved by the central IT group is you can't access it, whether it's online as a SaaS, whether it's you just block it.
Yeah.
They even, like, we keep joking about it. It's like they even uninstalled all our Chrome browsers because they can, and they can
Because
control Edge better.
They can't.
okay, can
At least you didn't get Internet Explorer.
Can we get in the trust tree for a second? Y'all know that Edge is Chromium, right?
Yes.
We're gonna
Yes.
don't tell the IT team.
I will tell you that they don't function the same, though.
No.
I can speak to that. They may be the same background, but there's definitely
It
differences.
is. It's very similar, Jeff. But because we're a Microsoft shop, as a central group, they can control it better, right?
And you know me, I joke with you, but I'm a big proponent of it. I like this. So that gives us a little thread to pull with you guys, especially at Haskell, because you're not a company of no. We get to joke about IT being no, and I actually think them having a level of control is a good thing, but it's a bad thing if it doesn't have the structure. So talk a little bit about the structure that Haskell's created to solve that problem, because a house of no doesn't work. They'll find a way. They'll just start text messaging everything, and then you'll have nothing on a project but some guy's text phone,
Oh, man.
So talk about how you guys have approached this from a solutions orientation perspective.
Yes. So we have what we call kind of like the foundational solutions, right? So you're talking about system of record, you're talking about your ERP, things that are common across all projects. And we have so much training on that, help desk ready to jump on a call if somebody's having an issue. And you must use that for your project, right? You can't say, no, I don't want to, then you don't get paid, kind of thing. It's like your project doesn't move forward if you're not using the right tools to process, payment applications, to look at anything else, right? RFI, submittals, all of that stuff. So that's level one, right? That all of it is known, controlled. You have access to it to your project. Permissions are set. Training is available. Now you're talking about point solutions. That's a whole other world, right? Because there's so many of them, and everybody wants to test something different. We've seen that like with the start, like 2017, 2018, when like 360 solutions were all over the place, and we got like 17 projects. Each one is piloting a different one. we can't do that as the same organization, right? You have to, like, there's a whole lot of efficiencies and cost savings that you can be doing by standardizing some of those. So the process became more of, you're interested in a software, submit an application, right? There's a page for it. There is a form. You submit it. Here's the application, what it's solving for. Here's why I want to test it. And IT would evaluate that. If we vetted a solution that does the same thing, the answer is immediately no. Here's what we have. It's an enterprise level agreement. Use this or don't. We don't care. That's a whole other thing too. Is like a lot of these solutions.
How firm is that enterprise thing? Because I feel like even in a big organization, you're going to be like, well, on this region or on this project, it's okay. I mean,
I'm
you guys
curious
pretty firm
about
about that?
Yeah, that's another model that we tried, especially with point solutions, is it's a la carte in a sense. So there is an enterprise level agreement, but you don't automatically have access to it unless if you request to have access to it for your project, right? And then you get billed for it to your project.
Sure.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of that level agreement. But that's the point, is like once you get to that enterprise level agreement with a solution, any requests to pilot their competitor is practically going to be blocked, unless if it comes to me directly and not through IT. Is like, hey, I really want to try this because, and you have to have like very specific reason why you prefer this over that, not because you like the salesperson more or they sent you a basket or whatever it is.
Never happens.
Sales tactics
Never
fine.
happened.
Right, but we do. So as DisruptX, so the group that I work in we're just looking at all these solutions. So I evaluate and everything under the sun, and we have our own carved out connectivity and sandbox that we play around with, just so that when somebody comes in and says, "I want to test this," and we have a competitor, I can tell them why that's not going to work, right? Or yes, they actually have a new feature that doesn't exist there. Let's try it out, right? And let's pilot it and kind of go from there.
Can we talk a little? I guess maybe you touched on it a little bit, but like, how do you test and vet those things, to your process or what you're, I mean, the methods that you're pushing down on the project? I mean, do you have you mentioned sandbox or, you do,
Yeah.
but like, how do you, I guess, how do you get like a fair shake of something without actually trying it in some semi real world?
Oh, this is going to sound a little cocky, but I know.
That's fine.
That's
Kind of,
fine.
when I see a demo call, a lot of times I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what you do. I mean, I've seen 7 others that do the same thing. What else do you have? Kind of thing. You know what I mean? Uh, and of course, in these calls, salespeople hate me. That's okay. Hang out with me, guys. It's gonna be fine. As I asked him, I joke about this. I even have it in the book, which is like I ask 3 questions, kind of like Rick Grimes in The Walking Dead. But it's not about killing zombies or people. It's about one, what's the specific problem statement your solution is solving for, right? And if they start rambling on for 2 minutes, I'm like, no, come back, give me 1 sentence. What's the problem statement? What is the main essential problem statement that you're solving for? Yes, there's additional features. Yes, there are things that you provide, but what's the problem statement that you're solving for? That's number 1. Number 2 is, who are your biggest competitors? I usually kind of keep it vague, but sometimes I ask about 3 main competitors. And that's the question that really freaks them out. They're like, no, I don't want to talk about my competitors, right? On a demo call
I
with you,
don't
I want
have
to sell
any.
you.
What do you mean?
Yeah, right.
I love that
It's a
answer
brand new solution.
Well, that
because
just means nobody else is doing what you're doing, which is not a good thing.
no, not necessarily, Trent. Because 9 out of 10 times when I ask that question, I know who the competition is.
Yeah.
And I want to see their reaction to it, and I want to see
Right.
what their answer is, right? And it's one of 2 things. If they say I don't know my competition, or if they so I don't have any competition, could be they're lying, right? They don't want to tell you their competition, or they don't know their competition. That's even worse. um,
Or they answer Excel, because that's what we can all say.
Right.
Yeah. Who's your competition? Excel.
Let's be honest, Excel is everybody's competition.
It is.
Yeah.
No, I
if I
like
get a
that,
dime for
Hamza.
every time.
So that's like,
Wait, that was 2
yeah, there's
questions,
one more,
wasn't
right?
it?
One more.
Was-
Sorry.
Third question.
That,
We need a third
yes,
question.
The third question is what differentiates you from them. But if they didn't answer the second question
Absolutely.
correctly, we don't even get to the third one.
He never gets to third.
It's like-
You know what I think is funny is I would imagine that there's a number of them that don't know there's a competitor because it's in a different domain. So like I get similar calls all the time
Yeah.
and they're like, so what are you using? And I'm using something out of manufacturing, or I'm using something that's just office.
Yeah.
Like I want to say administrative software to do what they're doing. And they don't view it as a competitor because they're in construction. It's like, yeah, but the dude over there in admin does it better than you, and it's already installed on my
Yeah.
computer.
Yeah.
So I think you're educating them, which I love. I love that. I do have a question because you guys hit really hard on the sort of the IT versus construction tech tension, and there's a lot of tension there, and we talk about it a lot on the show. I just recently had a call with somebody who hired IT for their construction tech group. So they hired an IT professional who has only done IT for the construction tech group for 2 things. One is to better communicate, but the other is they had decided that the central problem was that IT doesn't know enough about construction tech and is not taking the responsible track of going down and understanding and learning about it. Do you feel like that's a good move? Because I actually told them, I said, that's interesting. I don't know if it's going to work. But do you think it would be worth, like, you have a really good group.
Yeah.
You're vetting out a lot of software. Do you have somebody that is sort of, I want to say, a staunch IT professional, a sample-esque IT professional?
Oh, we said professional. What do we
There's
got?
only one.
Sample-esque.
He said professional.
Look,
Andy said professional. I'm not either.
Yeah.
I have all the respect in the world for IT people, right? They are really
So do I.
amazing, and they keep the lights on, they keep our systems going, they keep the bad people out, right? And it's extremely important to have that structure But again, at the same time, that's a very good point that you made, Jonathan. It's like they are usually, so of course there's exception to that rule, is that usually they're not aware of what else is out there and why are other people looking at different technology than what we have today. Like many times I look at so many different solutions, and of course they want to refer me back to the Microsoft suite, right? It's like, oh, Microsoft has a version of that. Oh, you want to use whatever? Microsoft has lists. You want to use this? Microsoft has that. Whiteboard? Yes, Microsoft has whiteboard. I don't need Miro. I'm like, no, guys, it's not the same. Just because it does something similar, it doesn't mean it's the same user experience, the same features, the same robustness, the collaboration. There's so many things.
They have a project management solution. What do you need anything else for?
Yeah, Excel, right? We already covered this.
No.
Why are you using those phones that don't open up? The phones that
I
open
don't
up
understand.
do the same thing. The little, I think they're called flip phones, but I think they do the same thing that
Yeah.
you're doing.
It seems like a healthy balance, though. I mean, I think obviously there's
you need to.
I think that when you talk about IT and OT, like operation tech versus IT, like I think there's a healthy camaraderie there.
Absolutely.
You know, Jonathan, it's like a software company where your product and engineering team have a healthy discourse, right? I mean, there's a level of banter that goes back and forth that I think you held each other accountable, and you're just trying to help each side make the right decision. So hopefully it's not completely gridlocking all progress, though. That's the don't be
No.
like our government, you know, actually do change things if you want. But
Are we
yeah.
going there?
Trent, you're
Are we
asking
going there, really?
Yeah, but Trent, you're asking a really good question. Like Hamza, how do you not get stuck in analysis paralysis and
Yeah.
balance that truly IT has requirements, but OT has requirements, and there's some sort of happy medium you got to get to. Like, how do you
Yeah.
guys balance that?
That's the beauty of this, is like when I look at all these different tech and I ask all the tough questions, I'm documenting everything in a CRM and like what we call kind of like a reverse CRM on the salespeople. And what that enables me
Oh,
is
that's
I have a
gold.
list.
I want that. I want that.
I love
That's
that when he
gold.
said
Yeah,
that when I was on stage with him.
absolutely.
That was brilliant.
But what that allows me and my team at DisruptTech is that we have a list of all these different tech and what they're solving for, and we can pin them against each other too, as like very quickly create a matrix that shows all the different solutions that solves for the same problem statement. What that allows me is that I have like a much higher vision at the entire ecosystem. And if I see an opportunity, if I see something that's out there that one, either we don't have something like that, and this could really increase our efficiencies, then I'm going to start, preaching about it. I'm going to start uh, putting up marketing campaigns internally. I'm going to start talking through. I'm going to bring them in for a show and case or tech and beer, or any of these kind of like cool events that we get people to come so they can see it hands on, and you get so much traction out of that. Or there's the other route of this, is somebody from a project team comes to us and says, hey, I wanted to use this tool. I'm really struggling with this problem statement, and IT is telling me no. Can you help me? And that's another route, right? And it's all, both routes are taking me to still a very structured pilot program that I'm really just trying to test this and see what is the value prop that it delivers. And then once we have the findings from that structured pilot program, that's when I put it all in a report and present it to IT and operations and say, hey, here's a technology that we tried that we really think it's going to change the game, and the competition that we're using today is being outplayed, and we don't want to be on that boat. Let's jump ship, kind of thing. So we're playing on all directions, and we kind of, again, it's constantly looking around and trying different things and keeping in mind of what we have today and what's in the market. This doesn't even mention things that we develop internally too, because sometimes we can't find the solution. That's a whole other world.
You got to homebrew, man. You got to homebrew.
I want
to do a lot of
to
that.
ask a question about your database, and I'm trying to phrase it in the right way that's not just going to get you hammered by more salespeople and whatnot. But when you're looking at these solutions, and I would imagine that you're looking for what's going to help Haskell, right? What's going to help Haskell on its projects? But I'm sure you come, from a trade standpoint, I'm sure you come across things that like, this trade contractor is struggling with this problem on this project. When you bring in those BIM and beers or whatever that you have, do you reach out to your partners for that stuff and be like, yeah, you're really struggling on this particular workflow. We think we have a product that can help you out with that.
100%. So we do.
Okay.
I make referrals too. Like salespeople, as much as I like to harp on them, I still love them too. And we make referrals. I refer them to different trade partners. I say, hey, these guys really need you, or need your solution. Or I mean, it could be like the other way around, right? It's like the trade partner on the job site saw something that we're doing and like, hey, I'm interested. Like, right on. I'll send you a referral right now.
We don't talk as much to GCs as we do to trade contractors on the show, by a pretty big margin, actually. At
Well,
times.
that's a problem,
So I
Jonathan.
do have a question. Oh yeah, dude. You need to help us out. You need to refer.
Yes.
You need to be our referral.
100%.
Yeah.
You refer us.
That's why I'm like
Yeah,
trying
no.
to ask more questions, because I'm like actually curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. What is so from a GC standpoint? Like I've thought for a long time. I've looked at GC tech and I've looked at sort of trade tech, and I've said GC tech looks better on the admin side for a large corporation, and trade tech looks way better on a detailed side, on a application side, especially in the fab shops and some of these other areas where we're playing with manufacturing almost. Um, what is your view from the jobs you're on and from that seat that you're sitting in particular, as someone who's sort of evaluating technology, of what you're seeing among your trade partners? And where do you feel like do you feel that that's tipped? I haven't been out there doing jobs for about 5 years. I've been designing software, so I feel like I'm out of the loop.
Okay.
So I'm asking you, bring me back into the loop. Where do you feel the trade partners are sitting technologically in sort of their maturity in
And I want
that?
to tack on a quick question to that. And does that influence your choices of trade partners as you go into projects?
Oh man, these are loaded questions. Uh,
You want the real answer?
I mean, I mean, just one. Let me clarify. Haskell is a design build as well. We're not just GC. So just putting that out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But from like a trade partner standpoint, like for every GC, there's like what 50 trade partners. I'm just guesstimating here. So there's a lot more companies. They're smaller. They're nimbler. They're more specific. They're specialized. But there's so many of them. So the average is all over the place, right? But we talk to like the larger trade partners. You're talking about Miller Electric, WWK, Comfort Systems, these big players. Not only are they like on the same, they're ahead of us technologically talking, ahead of us when you're talking about like what tech are they implementing and how forward thinking they are, because it's like they're very specialized about one thing, and if they implement the tech, it increases their efficiencies and their profit margins tenfold, rather than us, which like it just maybe gets us like an extra 0.1%,
Yeah.
That's
Interesting.
well said.
I
actually.
forgot the second
I mean,
question, Travis. Now it's like
That's
too many
right.
questions.
well, does it influence your selection?
Doesn't influence the
trade?
decision. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing that we have in the pre-qualification form is, do you have BIM capabilities, right? Can you
Okay.
use?
Are you cheaper than that guy? No, I'm just kidding.
That's right.
Can you BIM, and are you cheaper in the BIM?
Can you BIM
Yeah.
is the only big question that we ask,
Okay.
and that's a big differentiator. If they can't, then
Right.
we don't use them. But
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that's a self-reported, and oftentimes than not, we find out that it was
Wait, you can
not
lie on a resume?
really true. Yeah.
No, it's BIM
Yeah, imagine
services,
that.
man. I have BIM services. It's a guy in his basement, but you don't need to know that.
Right.
Don't worry
We
about it.
signed a trade partner who they shall remain unnamed, and I was running the coordination meeting, and of course they checked that checkbox that yes, we have a BIM group. And first coordination meeting, we're sitting down. I'm like, all right, guys, I sent you all the Revit files for your trade. Just make sure you start adding the details and stuff like that. It's like, I have a question. I'm like, yeah. It's like, what's Revit? I'm like, oh.
Ooh.
So what'd you say? I'm saying-
So say,
How do I answer that question next time?
How do I answer that question? I don't know.
That's interesting. Does Haskell require? I've seen some, and maybe it's project specific, but I've seen some GCs and CMs require that not only they have to check the box BIM, but it has to be like an internal business unit to the company and not a hired subcontractor for them. Do you guys go to that level, or are they allowed
No.
to subcontract that effort?
Yeah, I'd probably rather them hire somebody that knows what they're doing than them trying to figure it out.
I like that answer because I've seen that
Yeah.
go the other way, and in my mind, I'm like, I mean, yeah, I don't know if that makes
Yeah.
sense because you see these. There's a lot of really
It doesn't,
talented groups
but
out there that are
the
available.
only issue that I can see with that is like if you have a classified project or NDAs are related and you don't want this, leaking out to somebody else that's not included in the NDA, then maybe.
Right.
But that's
So you just got the award, and
I have it with me right here.
you know
the
oh yeah, yes.
yes.
Oh, looks awesome.
That's great.
It has the glasses and everything, man. What were you most the MEP Innovation Awards come out, we have Innovators of the Year on too, and there's always something. It's like, oh, this was my thing from the year that I got the award. This was the thing I was most proud of, or at least or most frustrated with. But what was your biggest thing from the 2023 year, the year that you represent as the ultimate dork, that you thought really defined that year?
I wish that I can answer that question because I'm not in the selection committee. Maybe you can ask Mr. Sample over here.
Well, it's interesting because this is one of the few awards that once started was selected by the Construction Progress Coalition on their own. And if I am not mistaken, it was Walker Lockhart, first one.
Yes.
But year over year,
Yep.
selected by the previous DOTY. So you were selected by Alice Leong.
Alice Leong, yes.
For all of the effort and process, but also marketing and thought leadership on how you work with venture capital, or how you work with construction technology companies. Obviously, Alice represents a VC herself that invests in construction tech, and how much you do not only for our market, but also for those companies. Like, the cool thing is I've, truth and transparency, I've been through the Disrupt Tech process as a software company. It's rigorous. First and foremost, it's rigorous, but it's like a workout. It's the kind of rigorous that's worth it. And it's like a workout that, like, if you get halfway through and it's like, you don't become some blacklisted thing. I mean, sure, I'm sure there's ways, Hamzah, that we could be, you could be like, okay, you guys are like, your snake oil salespeople, get out of here. But like, as a starting burgeoning contact company, Disrupt Tech will work with you and be like, hey, these are the things we think you need to go back and work on and come back to us. So I think she selected you for those reasons. So there you go. See, now you know why.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying is like, I'm constantly in podcasts and conferences speaking, preaching the word. And I still don't have my plaque, Jeff, for the betterment of the industry.
Wait, no, you're supposed to. Nathan said you had it. Nathan said that's why we have to have you on, and it's been delivered.
Oh, no.
You don't have your plaque?
This is different. This is the actual award. I needed a plaque on the wall that says for the betterment of the industry. This is how I look at things.
Oh, you need your
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
This is my motto.
We'll get you a plaque. We will get you a plaque.
Yeah.
Hey, John, get on 3D printing that. Would you?
Be the dork. I think we can do something there.
Yes.
Maybe separate. I'll call Nathan when we're done with the show. I have some ideas. No, but then what are you most proud of yourself
I
in terms of like the last little while? Because I will tell you why you're on all the podcasts and everything else. It's because all of us trade people that are those little
Mhm.
contractors, the thing we don't know how to do is scaling
Yes.
process. And the things that you are telling us about is scaling and processing. So like you are living in this gap of knowledge that I think a lot of the trade partners you're working with have. And that makes, everything you're saying very valuable to us. We make money off you
appreciate that. But the
and your
thing, like,
ideas.
going back to your questions, like, what's the most, like, the proudest
Yeah.
moment of 2023 for me is we have an internal innovation program, and we host a big pitch event. This is our Shark Tank style innovation challenge across the company. So we open it up to all our employees, submit your best ideas. It could be the craziest software development project, or it could be we need to go to the moon to harness some minerals or something like that. We got that actual idea. Um, and we select the top 5. We narrow them down. We build business cases for them, and we coach these individuals on how to pitch that. And then we get them on a stage, uh, huge stage, big stage, in front of the executives and the judges. And Alice is actually a judge in that competition. So that's where kind of she saw
There you go.
the innovation challenge that we had. Winners include, a couple of really highly noted winners is Via Technics Precogs is the lessons learned platform.
Oh,
This was
right
an
on.
idea from Haskell. This was a Haskell employee that we helped them develop that business plan, presented it, won, and then we went and developed it with Via Technic, bringing it to market that way. Another one is called Raptor, which is an IoT device that allows you to uh, conduct pneumatic pressure testing remotely. So that way you get everybody outside of the exclusion zone rather than just, everybody except the person pressing the button in there, right? To introduce the pressure or release the pressure. So these are 2 huge opportunities that we are bringing to market, that we are changing for the betterment of the industry, and more ideas to come from that competition.
Right on. That's awesome, man. I think that's a great idea. I wish more people would do that. I know when we asked for ideas in my shop way back when, someone came up within 10 minutes and had a little idea that we 3D printed and put their name
Nice.
on and got out there and for a little while we just tracked it to tell them how much money that idea made for the
Well,
company.
That's awesome.
And it was simple, but it made a
and,
lot of
and
money.
I love this idea of the Shark Tank concept. Jeff and I are going to be working on a session for SmackMa's annual convention where we're kind of it's loosely titled "Kill the Company," but it's not really the idea. It's like find those ideas inside of your company that you could spin up as its own entity, and it
Yeah.
runs off and makes money or whatever that ends up being.
Yeah.
I think that
But the
this is
ultimate goal for me is not making money. Yes, that's an extra. He's like,
Right.
improve
Yeah.
efficiencies, do other things.
yeah.
Sorry, Trent.
There,
That's-
there's
Oh,
so many
sorry.
other things it can be.
Yeah. I think it's more than just a service to, the trade partners that you're working with, but this is a service to the software companies too, Hamza. I mean, the thing to remember here is they're in this disrupt tech process with you, and these, what may seem like a negative um interaction that they may have, but I would argue that if they're not solving a real problem or bringing real value to their long-term survival isn't going to be there anyways. So
Yeah,
you're telling them what they need to hear, probably. And
100%. Yeah,
other people, don't get me wrong. There's probably been tech companies out there that have made it to glory by doing very little, but I would argue in
yeah,
today's world that is much less likely to happen. It's no longer enough to be good; you have to be great to succeed in tech. That ship has
100%.
kind of sailed. So I
I mean,
think you're
yeah,
doing them a service. You're saving them the time. Like they're not going to see 5, 10, 15, 20 years success if they're failing that interview with you. I just have to believe that.
yeah. No, absolutely, and I appreciate you saying that, and that's kind of a segue to my shameless plug here, Jeff. You told me I could do this, so
Oh no, I
uh,
wanted you to,
Plug
'cause
away. Plug
like we
away.
said, you can plug
so
away because
I
Hamza's one of us. So
yeah, I distilled all of these learnings that I've had through the past 8, 10 years into a book that's going to come out in August, hopefully, if my publisher doesn't kill me because I keep changing things last minute. But yeah, the book
Sounds
is
like
called
construction.
Paperless. Yes,
I
I try
swear it's
not to,
next
but
week.
then yeah, and then I talk to awesome people like y'all, and then I'm like, oh wait a minute, that was a good point. I need to add it there.
Scope creep. Yeah.
um, but yeah, Paperless Builders, the why, what, and how of construction technology is coming out in August.
It
Wow, dude, that was literally the next question I was going to ask you is how can someone learn how to like
Oh,
and
look.
could you real quick because we managed to miss this and I can't believe we did. Can you explain to us disrupt tech for all those people that don't? We've been talking about
Yeah,
disrupt tech. Can you explain that just like sort of what it is within your business and just the elevator pitch almost so that people understand what we mean when you're talking about that?
absolutely. So Disruptech is a separate entity. So it's a separate LLC, still wholly owned and operated by Haskell. Uh, but our mission is to be the bridge between Haskell and the external ecosystem in terms of technologies. And the name comes from we need to disrupt Haskell before somebody else comes and disrupts us, right? So we are becoming the bridge, and our mission kind of revolves around the three I's. So invest, invent, and innovate. So we make investments in the construction technology space for companies that make sense to us. We invent, we create technologies that don't exist, and then innovate, which is kind of harnessing that intellectual powerhouse that we have in Haskell.
Right on, right on.
it
It would be nice to see more of those innovation spin-offs happen for some of those bigger companies. I had one other question before I hand it off to one of the other doors. On the IT side, I was listening as you answered the question. It sounds like their big hammer is cybersecurity. So that's the biggest hammer is cybersecurity, which can take out a company for sure. But so can a lack of tech, right? Like, do you have how do people out there who are dealing with the same problem sort of address that, and how have you addressed that throughout the years to sort of justify to them maybe a small amount of risk or maybe something else that has to do with taking on a technology that might be, might not have the best security profile in this world?
Yeah, so cybersecurity is real, and it's going to ruin your company if you don't pay attention to it. Um, but of course, you have to keep testing, and you have to look at what else is out there in the market. And this is where Disruptech comes in this structured pilot program that we test in a safe environment, so to say. So it's not we're like not plugging into the entire database. That way, if something happens, we can quickly shut it off. But then, in order to go to
Yeah.
scale, and this is all explained in the book too. It's a much harder road than just kind of like proving your value prop and call it a day. It's just like so many different questions and layers to that, and the cybersecurity is one of them, including you know having single sign-on. You have to have single sign-on because if somebody leaves the company, I don't want to go and turn them off in every system out there. Uh, you got to have SOC 2 compliant
really
reporting. You got to have yeah, simple stuff like that you don't really pay attention to until you get bit by it.
Oh, yeah, you let somebody leave and they still have access to all your client files or whatever it might be from at least a project they were on, right? I
Yeah,
mean, it's the cybersecurity piece is so I'm glad you asked the question, Jonathan. It's really hard to be really compliant along the way. So it's great to see that again, Disrupt Tech, you've created a sandbox environment where hacks happen, leaks happen, problems happen, right? There's bugs in everything, and sometimes you don't know what cross execution bugs can do to a software. But if the cross execution goes from a bunch of startups to sandbox data, life's okay. If
Yeah.
it gets into Haskell's core system, it's dangerous. And so, but I can't believe I'm going to say this as an IT person. Security can get in the way of innovation at the same time.
Yes.
I don't think anyone's
We're gonna
arguing
We're
with
clip
gonna
that.
that
we're,
out.
we're gonna mark that. Can somebody snap Just everybody snaps so I can see that. Stealing that out of there.
It can, but you have to have security in mind from the beginning,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
It doesn't
So
have to be a zero-sum game. You can do both.
yeah, but but there's, and Trent, you'll know this now. There's so many gateways along the way that if you knowingly pass through a gateway and make the decision to not be secure, it can be security altering forever, and it can kill you. I mean,
Sure.
it could be devastating. So it's cool to have gateways. It's like Hamzah can say, hey, love what you're doing, love the innovation, Disrupt Tech's big fan, go get compliant.
Yes, we are
And
at
we'd
that
love
stage
to
with
sign you.
several solutions.
I know.
With several
Good.
solutions, we're
Yeah.
at that stage gate.
But you give
but-
you give those companies validation, right? Because
Yeah.
what they need for investment, what they need to focus product on those things is
Mhm.
validation that someone's going to buy it. And so
Yeah.
people forget that there's an entire economic impact to all of this. Like if the economics don't match up, I'm going to go searching for people who don't care about the security because I got to sell it. But
Yeah.
now if you say, hey, I've validated what you do, secure it and I'll enterprise it, I've got a whole new gateway that can take me to a whole new land and can create a system that works.
100%.
Do you tour offices to see how many passwords are on sticky notes on monitors to make sure that they're all?
You would be
The bottom of
surprised.
my keyboard is clear.
No, I'm just trying to remember my birthdays and my. Yeah.
My God, don't get me started on this. Did you guys see the password release hack July 4th?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Rocking
That
horse.
was built up over a long period of time,
10
though. That was a long period of
billion
time.
passwords.
Wow.
Yeah. I downloaded it.
Although I've gone to our security and analyst friends and talked about this, it's actually less useful than we thought. Because there's a number of ways that's useful.
I didn't even think about it, so I didn't even know. So.
One is about how you could reverse hash then with that brute force, figure out the hash algorithms. If someone can figure out your hash algorithms, to anybody listening that doesn't know what those are, when you type and there's all the stars, that's hashed, and it gets passed not as what you wrote, your dog's name, 1, 2, 3, 4. It sends an actual encrypted key. But if someone can know what those keys are, they can decrypt it. It's just an algorithm for decryption. But it's actually recently been released that it's not as useful as they thought. However, if your systems are not brute force ready, you can't, then it's useful. And what is brute force? Brute force is I'm just going to keep throwing passwords at you forever. And you're not going to stop me. Which, by the way, most of you know, like, shoot, if I type my password into XYZ login one more time wrong, I'm going to go through the password reset or I'm going to get locked, right? Yeah. Jonathan's like, oh, God.
My kids in their phones, man. How many times do you go like, okay, cool, I'll try it again in an hour?
I just think it's kind of fun to like put a bunch of commas in all your passwords. That way, if they do database your like the password list in a CSV, it messes with all their rows and columns. Yeah.
Okay. Trent, I want to know where your brain came up with that because I absolutely love that. I've been doing this forever and I never thought of that.
I'm sure it was curated somewhere. I don't know. But yeah, thinking about rows and columns and comma delimited sheets, I'm like, yeah, if you just throw commas in all of your passwords.
I'm going back and adding commas to everything.
Hashtags and commas.
Hashtags
man.
and commas.
Yeah.
Hey, to heck with them. You got to fight somehow.
That's right.
So I have a sandbox question for you since we're at the end. And so if you've lasted this long, you're a real dork. So I can ask a dork question. Sandboxes are always interesting. I know a lot of people are starting to set up their fab shops as a separate no trust network from their their main business, because so much of the software that's used in fabrication isn't ready security wise, and it's a low security area. Somebody hacks your fab shop, maybe not the worst thing in this world, but like what kind of worries do you have in regards to that sandbox, or can you give us some details about it? Are you spinning up virtual machines, or how do you decide to take that risk? Because your group is one of the few groups that's saying, we're going to take the risk and test it anyways. We already know you don't meet our standard for safety.
Yeah, I wish I can answer that. I'm not that deep in the dorkiness of that
You're
side.
not that nerdy.
Uh, but
So
I mean,
John
when we
owns the
talk
nerd
about
alert.
our
For the,
IT is we set up a sandbox in our either ERP system or in the system of record, so Procore for ours in our case, and we have our sandbox that has a sample project, not you, Jeff, just a sample project.
And that would be a good
and
point.
oh,
Yeah.
Jeff's a project.
I'm a
He's always
project.
Makes
making
him
money.
feel wanted,
Always
man. Leave
making
it.
money.
Let him.
Hey,
Tell him it's
I'm
based on him, so he
ABC. I'm
feels
only
better.
speak casting. We're gonna make a cast out of it. That's all we're gonna do.
But what we put in the sample project is actual data from a previous project, but we scrap the names of like the client and the location and all that stuff. So that way, when we kind of plug in this point solution to it, we see how it works, right? And we can kind of communicate with each other and play around with it a little bit.
No, that's really good, man. You take the data and you actually make the data no longer, no longer a security risk. I think that's actually a really good advice, because what I was talking about was like all the physical assets that you change, but you're saying, no, let's just change the data so we can leave the physical assets alone, and it's still not a
And
security
that still
risk.
gives you a good.
It's just change the last.
That still gives you good proof of concept of using that tool on a project, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And the
Yeah,
key
right
to it
on.
is you guys are using real data that's anonymized, and that's something that we've seen too much. I'll actually give the overly security enabled folks a knock. Is a lot of times they'll use tools to create the data, but it's because it's been created by the tool, it's not real enough to test what you're trying to do, because it's outside of the parameters of what reality would be, and it's not going to give you a good feedback. So by anonymizing it and bringing it over, then you can truly test workflows, you can truly test those things without breaking anything. By the way, what Hamzah's team is doing, for everybody else, so is exactly what we should be doing to create a construction enterprise data set where we're anonymizing the reality of the data into an industry, not one vertical, not one company, but everybody. Because that's actually how we can benchmark and create an enterprise data set that we can do something with. Until then, people like Hamzah's group, people like Haskell and Disrupt Tech can test things and innovate and change and impress and increase their margins. But we actually can't fully move an industry forward unless we do something like that. And what you're showing is how possible it is, because you can create sandboxes just with it. And I bet you IT can do it with a click of a button.
Yeah.
And you
but
trust it every
my
time.
data. My data, you're not going to look at my data. This is mine. And you have your data over there. That's how we function. We try to break down those
it is
walls.
My data. My data is the thing that keeps me separate from all of you, isn't it?
Yeah. That's how I win more work and get more profits.
I think your second book has to be The Reality is Your Data is Not Your Strategic Advantage.
I love that. I love that.
Nice. Maybe that would be your first book, Jeff.
Hey, maybe I got to write a book. Mine's going to be a
tell-all.
tell-all. Mine's going to be a tell-all.
How about that?
Hamzah, how you
we'll
found
write
time
it
to write a
together.
book?
All right. I'll
There
write a
you
book
go.
with you. My data
That's
my
a good
data.
question, Jonathan. I get that question a lot. And my answer is always, I point at this thing.
Okay.
This is the biggest efficiency and effective machine in the world, but it's also the biggest distraction in the world. And when I really kind of discovered how much distraction I was having with my stupid smartphone, I freaked out. I just like threw it out. I blocked everything, deleted all the apps, and thought like, what productive thing that I should be doing right now? This is how I started writing a book. This is how I created an album that I'm putting on Spotify. This is how I did so many different things, because I'm like, wait a minute, no, I don't need to be looking at Instagram the whole time. It's like, it just,
Right.
you don't even think how many hours you waste every day just looking at your phone mindlessly.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't
Oh.
even believe it if you
Well,
put
I
a number
don't.
on it.
I'm with you. I don't fall victim to
Oh.
it, but I see it. It's yeah,
Yeah.
it's
All right.
sickening.
How
It's
did you kick
crazy.
it? How'd you kick the habit? How'd you kick the habit?
I
I
never
have the
got
habit.
involved.
I didn't. I still struggle with it.
Okay.
But I'm
I've
mindful of
implemented
it, and I
screen.
see
So
it.
I have 2 kids and I have to raise them and create limits. So I learned how to
Yeah.
use the screen time limits. I've put them on myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, those
That's a good
don't
one.
work
That's a
though,
good
because you
idea.
can
That's a good
snooze it.
idea.
You can add 15 minutes.
You know
You can
what? You
keep
can
doing
add
that all day
15
long.
You can, but literally and maybe this is my upbringing, but the layer of guilt, it's like hitting the snooze button. I can hit the snooze button, and by the way, I set my alarm this way 2 times. So I set it 2 snoozes ahead, knowing that's the least.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
God.
Quit lying to
I-
yourself.
No, I
Yes.
can't.
I-
I can't. So I know that I can.
So-
So I set it, and the guilt. I'm not doing more than twice. But
I tried so
But
many
then
different.
again, you're a
Yeah.
LinkedIn guy. I'm a LinkedIn guy. I think everybody here does a little bit of that social media thing. So I've had to allow the LinkedIn a little bit more and
Yes.
separate it out. But by the way,
So
don't make the LinkedIn.
here's how I solved that, Jeff. And
Tell me.
again, it's not 100% solved. I still struggle with it. I've tried so many different things. There's so many apps that do the blocking, the time limit stuff on the phone. There's like a physical device that I have on called the brick, that you brick your phone and it just blocks everything. And you can't unbrick it unless you have to go back to that device itself. So if you put it away from yourself, you can't fix it. I've bought a couple of
I like
other
that.
dumb phones that only call and text, because that was my main concern, is like, when I put my phone away, is like, what if my wife needs me right now? What if something
Right.
happens, right?
My
It's like,
kids,
I'm not
yeah.
gonna, right.
I
My kid
agree.
is right. Like, so it's always a struggle, but I found these dumb phones and that worked for a little bit. But now there's several things that I have, like the Opal is the app that I'm using right now, OPAL. And it works really well. It's expensive. So it's like, you have to pay like $60 a year for a subscription, but it really, really works. It blocks out everything, and you set the timer, right? It's like, I set it from 9 to 9. Don't show me anything other than phone, text, email. That's it. And the last thing is, I even turned off the notification off the email. So I don't get notified when there's a new email. If I want to check email, I go and check it, because email
Sure.
is not, absolutely 100% urgent. If somebody's urgent,
Right.
they're going to call me.
Yes.
Yep.
So OPAL. Well, think about
OPAL.
so everybody out there listening, $60 a year. Think about that. How much
It's not-
money do you make an hour? Go ahead and put that into it. I mean, be realistic with yourself. How many hours do you blow on worthless phone time?
Mhm.
$60 is probably a bargain. So let's
For sure.
My kids make fun of me because every time they say, "Can you check Facebook?" I have to reinstall it because I delete the apps after I'm done with. Like, if I have Twitter
Nice.
or X or whatever, it's like I look at it and then I delete it when I'm done because I know it
Burn
takes
after
work to
reading.
put it back
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
and I'm
And
lazy.
single sign
Yeah.
on, and then you're like, I can't get signed in. Forget it. I'm out. Yeah. And I just.
By
By the
the
way,
way-
I can tell you, I thought I had this covered, and then I just did a trip to Scotland, broke my phone. By the way, the iPhone is waterproof unless you crack it. Didn't realize that. It got wet. 4 days without my phone. I have a problem.
Yeah,
I had
right.
to deal with that.
Little,
I mean,
little twitching.
well, you know what it is? Actually, you know what it is? For 3 days of it, I was like, this is awesome. But I
Yeah.
had a flight coming and had to get Uber and Waze and my boarding passes and kids, and that made the anxiety that created. But I also did realize, like, I checked my pockets, and I'm like, it's
Right.
in a bag of rice over there. It's dead.
Yeah.
Stop. And by the way, everything on it backed up to the iCloud. So nothing's gone, nothing to worry about. I think I would agree with you. I think I think we do a whole episode on like digital detox and how the heck you
Oh
pull
man.
it off.
Yeah.
And Hamza, I was really hoping during your explanation that you were going to say like, "Oh, this burner phone works perfectly," because I would go that route for at least a couple of weeks a year, like burner phone only.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Because it's like I want to talk to the boys when they want to text. I've got kids that need to call, always need to call and do certain things, but that's it.
Yeah.
So
As a side note, Hamza's music will be on the YouTube channel down in
yeah,
the notes,
Yeah,
just so
yeah,
you know if you want to
absolutely.
follow him on
For sure.
Spotify. Book's coming out soon, but we'll get that on there too. But we're definitely gonna throw
the
that on
man
there.
is
Thank you.
talented
That's where
beyond context.
Yes.
talent to
Yeah, I
spare.
appreciate
The
that.
Because
man
he
is
has more
Awesome.
time than you
Spare.
do because he doesn't waste it on his phone.
Exactly.
That's right. That's
The
right.
man is talented beyond. You, it was awesome to see you get the DOTY award this year, Hamza. But I'll tell you what was even better was our experience at the AEC Integration Summit together when you won the
Yeah, that was
award,
awesome.
and the fun nights we had, pickleball and jamming. I mean, if you guys haven't seen the video, go check it out. I know Hamza shared it. I've shared it. You know, if you haven't, go to constructionprogress.org. You can find it. The videos of the I guess it was a jam session, right?
Yeah, it was a fun jam session, like an impromptu kind of, yeah, let's play something. And I just played Wish You Were Here, Pink Floyd, and everybody jammed to it, and that's what made it as the music of the of the
Yeah,
video.
it was funny because Hamza played it and then Aaron Wright was like, "This is going to be the music of the entire thing. We're going to go to Wish You Were Here,"
For
which,
sure.
Yeah.
by the way, if you weren't at AEC Integration Summit, you need to be there next year. It is a killer event. And Hamza, I mean, for all the dorks, thanks for being one of the brave GCs to sit down with us. I hope you're breaking the mold so we can get a few more
Yes,
GCs
I'll
that
I'll
are
I'll
this
recommend
forward.
more too. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having
Fantastic.
me, and this has been a blast. Thank you guys.
It's awesome to have you. If you haven't checked it out, check out paperlessbuilder.com, right?
Paperless.builders.
Paperless builders. Way
Paperless.builders
to go, Jeff.
Yeah.
to find the book and read the book, because I've had a couple of previews to it. I'm one of the ones that's
Very good.
giving him lots of things in the background because I think it's going to be a fantastic book.
Yeah,
And
thank you
for
for your
all
help
of
and your
the
support, Jeff.
hey, anytime, my man. And this has been episode 84, the DOTY Award podcast with Hamzah Shanbari.